you guys to give me feedback. Those of you who have been in youth ministry leadership for a little bit longer than 6 months or something, maybe kind of give a little bit more of your input as well, because I think it's important for us to have a dialogue about this. But let's all flip over to
Page 3.
where is it? Page?
Blank.
No, page. Well, they're not numbered. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. So you flip it. It's the one with, where the creepy birds are. Go to the next page. Okay. These are Gabe's creepy birds. Gabe and David helped me put this together, as well as you guys know Miss Diane. She helped proofread it, and so did Gabby helped with a little bit of it as well. So I thank them. But everybody boo at these creepy birds, all right? Yeah, but communication, the section says communication. One of the most vital assets, one of the most important things in any ministry, and this is something that nobody I think in this room could say they got it down perfectly, but it's something that we're working on and we need to get better at, is communication. Can I get an amen to that? Okay. Those of us who are married in here, I think you can testify, right? One of the major issues why couples fight is 1, communication, and 2, finances. Those are usually the 2 biggest things. Communication or lack of it, I think, would be the better way of saying it. And so, those of you who are planning on getting married, think about this, apply it. The stuff that we talk about here is I think, practical and applicable to life. Communication. So, on here, we wrote on here, email, texting, app, Evite, social media, and phone calls. These are all different ways that we can communicate with each other. So turn over, please, to the side that says email. Email right there. And so we're going to be changing a little bit of our email strategy. It's going to be, I think, getting better, Lord willing. We will be sending out, it says here, weekly and monthly updates to every leader. So I'm going to encourage you, I'm going to ask you to please check your email more frequently than once a month, okay? Some of you have these smartphones, so there's really, I don't think, any excuse. We all have access to an email account, and I'm going to ask you guys to do something right now, too. If you haven't done it already, consider switching to Gmail, and here's why. Those of you who have Gmail, you know this. We can use the Gmail setting. There's settings through the calendars. We can create invites. So we can communicate easily through that. So if you have Yahoo or one of these others, I'm going to pray that you repent and turn to the way of Gmail and join us, because here's, like I said, it just makes everything a lot easier for communication. Even if you just have your Gmail for this ministry, and you can keep your whatever you have, AOL or something, and those of you who still have that, was that MSN, whatever. You can still keep that one for all your friends or whatever, but for kind of for our ministry, if you would switch to that, and then let me know. If you start an email account, or if you don't have one, I'm going to ask you to send me an email with your new Gmail account if you start one, because that way I can add you to our list and make sure you guys are updated. How many of you guys get my emails on a regular basis? All right, how many actually read them? Okay, all right. I appreciate your honesty. I'm going to encourage you guys to please be diligent about that, because it's one of the easiest ways to communicate large group. We're also going to be sending out, I'm going to send out a weekly email updating what's going on in the ministry, maybe links to opportunities for training that you can go to on your own, that you can click on there to get some further equipping. Any useful information, and I want it to be something where we all are interacting and using more than just for once a month communication, but I want it to be more frequent than that. Secondly, texting. How many of us in here text? I think all of us do, right? Texting is going to be another. We're going to step up in the texting area. I know this is kind of a challenge for some of us with the group. For me personally, I love this new update on the iOS where you can get out of group texts. But I think it's important to have them for this reason, once again, for communication, because not everybody checks email, but having a group text sent out, for example, yesterday would have been a perfect time to do that. Reminder, we have this meeting tomorrow, just something like that, just a reminder. We're going to be doing that. Text alerts will be sent out. my hope is like every other week type of thing, not every day. I don't want to blow up your phones. I don't want to be like, there's Kevin again sending out a group text. No. You know, I want it to be a communication piece. Any questions on these two things? Email or texting? Comments? Yes.
When you respond to a group text, don't respond to all. That's really annoying for us with on smartphones.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, are you coming? I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming. Just tell Kevin. That is all. There you go.
Please.
They're going to be more just like in general, like, hey, reminder this is
I have an
happening.
Android, so I don't get that.
For the two gentle giants over here that have, you know, non,
Generally, you don't want to upset giant
right.
people.
You don't. You guys saw Lord of the Rings, remember the trees, right? Okay.
Yeah, I like those trees. They were
Love you guys, right? But it's true. I super get annoyed with, like, my family does these all the time. So thank you for this new update. But I want it to be, like I said, bi-weekly, something not frequent. That way we're reminded of important things that are coming. Any questions on this before we move on? Comments? All right. Next one. This is where having the invites through Gmail makes it really easy. They're apps, they're to help remind us of training sessions or, for example, camps or any events that are happening. It's real easy to send out like an invite, and then everyone gets to respond. And on those, you can put like, yeah, I'm coming, or I'm dressing up like, Scooby-Doo for this next thing that we're going to have, or whatever. These are those places where you can do that. Also, these invites will be like useful for like I put on there, winter camp, beach camp, Samia, staff parties, whatever. This would be a good place. This will be a place where you can RSVP to things as well. Like, for example, I know for some of us it's a challenge to do that. This is an easy way to do it. Like for this meeting, I asked you guys to RSVP. I got maybe 50% RSVP, which is, I figured this is what we were going to have, and that's okay. But, like RSVPing is an important habit to start getting into, especially to us Latino people. We don't, yes, it's RSVP. Like, what? I don't understand that. But, like, it's important for us to, like, respond and to, like, so we can plan. We can plan accordingly. So I can know how many of these to print out, how much food to have or whatever. So we'll start to do that. Next one. Social media. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Social media, it's a tool. It's like anything else, like a tool. Some of you guys carry pocket knife. All right?
Only the Latinos.
See, this is one of the most useful tools that I have. This little knife right here. But in some people's mind, it's a what? A weapon, right? And it can be used as a weapon, right? Definitely. But can these keys be used as a weapon?
Yep.
Definitely. Some of you guys have seen Jason Bourne, take a pen and kill somebody with it, right? Anything can be used as a weapon, but I think social media, making my point, is a really amazing tool when it's used correctly. So much good can be sent out, and so much bad as well. We all know this. But I'm going to encourage you, some of you in here already have Facebook accounts. If you do, let me know if I haven't friended you or whatever. And this is another tool that I use to communicate through our meetings. How many of you guys got that Facebook reminder yesterday? And you actually paid attention to it and clicked it, right? You have to go to it, right? You have to go look at it. But once again, it's another tool. I'm going to share this with you guys too. You guys know this. You guys are close enough to their age. A lot of our students, that's how they communicate, through social media. There's people in this room who the way they get a hold of me is through Facebook Messenger. They may have my number, they might know like my email or whatever, but they choose to send me a message through Facebook Messenger. And you know what? That's okay. I don't care. The little thing goes on my phone, and I click on it, and I read it, and I respond. It doesn't bother me, but I think it's just a useful tool. It's a useful tool to communicate and get stuff together. So all this to say, we have multiple ways to communicate. I need to work on this, and I think probably most of us do. We need to be in better communication as administrators. I'm going to give you an example. Like, for example, there's a couple of events that happened these last month where there wasn't good communication, and students were left, stranded. Students were left like wondering what's going on, and parents were upset. And and those are things that we need to tighten up the belt on, all of us. And I'm not saying names, and I'm not saying who did it or who didn't do it. I think that we've all learned our lesson. I think we've all learned our lesson. We need to get these things better handled, because ultimately, you guys, I think, all know this. when the students walk through this door, or 270, 224, or on Wednesday nights, or on Fridays if they're out at a life group or at a Bible study, whose responsibility are they? Ours. They're our responsibility. The law says that we are, it's called in loco parentis, is Latin meaning in the place of parents. We are in the place of the parents at that moment. And if we're not communicating with the parents, if we're not letting them know things are happening or not happening, and then we're kind of like, what do we do? Then we are responsible. If something happens to them, we open ourselves up to giant liability, and that's not what we need. We need to be communicating. Yes, Fernando?
I have a few questions.
Yes.
Question number one,
Correct.
the incident that you were talking about,
Yeah.
those people that were involved know it already?
Yes.
Okay,
They've been admonished,
that's all I
Fernando
know.
likes to say.
okay. Second question is, speaking of communication or lack of it, does this mean to say that David is back now, or?
No,
Okay, so David is not back, or he is?
not yet.
David is not back yet completely.
Okay. And the third one.
Because he helped make the
Okay, and the third one was, what was it? So using this communication, is it gonna be for everything involved in the ministry? Because a lot of times, I don't think there's a lack of communication when it comes to meetings, events. I think there's a lack of communication involved when it's more intricate parts of the ministry, such as i.e. David or someone not gonna be here, things like that. So are we gonna use this for that too, or is it gonna be more intimate?
I think it depends on the situation. Like, are you saying like, let's say like the small group leader is going to be there or something like that? Give me an example. What do you mean by that?
James are here, I didn't know they were coming. Not that I'm I'm not, I don't have no entitlement to 9 o'clock, but it would be nice to know that we're gonna have new people at 9 o'clock, stuff like that. Or for instance, David's not gonna be here, stuff like that. That's what I'm talking about. So those are more intimate that I don't know if you'd wanna put on this, that's why I'm asking.
Right. I think it's case by case.
Okay.
Depends on the situation.
Because honestly, from my opinion, that's where the lack of communication is. The meetings, the events and all that stuff, we seem to know, I think you're pretty good at that, but it's the small little details that a lot of times, I don't think a lot, and I hear this from a lot of the different ministries that, oh, we didn't know he was gonna be here, oh, we didn't know they weren't here, or we didn't know this, or we didn't know that. That's where the problem, I think, in my opinion, falls, not.
And I think that, a lot of these could be probably handled better through these different mediums because the reality is we are one team, and we need to, there's certain things, certain details that we don't have to necessarily share, but like the big general ideas we can. So I think that, for the most part, yeah. we
Or
can do that.
even a more recent example is like, for me, you shared with me about the new format with the room, and I appreciate that, and I was kind of hesitant about it at first, but I know that there's some people that just kind of walked in and said, oh, what's going on here? That, for someone that's, even helping out in that ministry, not necessarily in charge, because basically you're in charge, I think that would be a nice way of saying, that would be something nice to be communicated to everyone, not to be a shocker where they walk in and like, oh, I didn't know the room was gonna change, nobody told me. Or even as small as the what do I do on Sundays?
Snacks?
Yeah, the refreshments and the coffee and stuff, even that, a lot of, my understanding was there's a few people that didn't know, and that, I think for a high school leader or a middle school leader, those are things that I think we're dropping the ball on. So.
I appreciate it. And I think those are where these can be used to help communicate and get the word out. So thank you. Anything else?
I think too, on the lessons for us, if we can get them earlier instead of on Thursdays.
That's
More
a
time.
structural thing. I try, but it doesn't always happen because of those of you who've been here during the day who serve here, like sometimes we'll have like Tuesdays or Wednesdays where I have like literally 5 meetings in a row, and a lot of them are spontaneous. People just show up and things, and that's okay. I mean, that's my job, right? So, I will try my very best, but the reality, that's probably going to be the day you get it.
Isn't it possible you could send out the rough earlier though, or no?
I can send out a rough copy, yeah.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Maybe just so we kind of get an idea.
The final copy, no, that's just, it's hard with all the different
Right.
things,
No, I understand.
all the different things that I've got to try to juggle, 3 different ministries, all the stuff, so. Well, some of these things are the only things that I can do, but there's certain things that we can send out for sure, like the rough copies, we can send them out. You can have somebody, like maybe this is something that you don't know, and I'm gonna announce it right here since the majority are here. We have a new administrative assistant that some of you may have met, may have not. Her name is Mariah Clark. Some of you you'll start to see her name. She's gonna start sending stuff out on my behalf. Maybe like this type of stuff where she can send out things ahead of time. M. Clark at sunrisechurch.org is what you're gonna start seeing Mariah Clark. She's really good, she's super efficient. Those of you who've already worked with her, you know this. If you need, like, for example, a classroom reserve, email her, call her, and she will knock that out in a half second. She'll get it done quick. If you need copies of something made, you know, if you need a PowerPoint created, if you want a flyer that's tight, she does really good graphic design stuff. We're gonna just let her know, or you can let me know and I'll communicate with her as well. She's really good about that. If you need, like, I don't know, you guys are gonna do an event for your life group and you need 20 pizzas or something, let me, communicate through her, and we'll handle all that stuff. Okay, within reason, all right? That better be meant like 200 boys in that house or something for Fernando's arthritis. You know what I'm trying to say.
They could go through 20, I'm sure.
Really good. Really good. But you know what I'm saying? Like, she's really super helpful. She wants to serve the ministry as well. She's trying to figure that all out because she's working full-time and she's going to Cal State, finishing up her degree as well. So she's got a lot on her plate, but she's super, super helpful. So you're going to see that. So get to know her. She's taking Tracy's spot. Those of you guys remember Tracy, she's taking her spot. So Tracy, yes, bring back Tracy. All right. And then let's flip this over. Last thing right here. I wanted to show you young people. This is called a phone. This is really neat. Like, really cool. You pick it up and you talk into it. It's like really bizarre. It's not. You can't text with this though. You can't. Sorry. This is not a. How many of you guys remember these phones? Do you remember these? I remember the rotary phones like this. Man. I remember my grandma had a phone number that started with a letter. You would dial a letter and then was it 4 or 5 digits, something like that?
5 digits.
5 digits? Do you guys understand what that means? Everybody had the same area code, so you didn't have to worry about 909, 951, 714. It was just whatever that letter was, which was the prefix, right, the number, and then the last 5 digits. That's how much how much has changed in the last what? How long ago was that? 40 years ago?
Yeah.
Maybe less than that, right? 30?
About 40 years.
About 40 years ago. That's how much has changed in our world and our culture. So this right here, you might get an old-fashioned phone call from myself, probably more than likely from Mariah. You guys can just hit ignore, because that's what you're probably going to do, or let it go to your voicemail, right? But, sometimes I actually pick up my phone. Those of you who know me, if you call me, I usually pick up my phone, and it startles people. I didn't think I was going to get anything. So, phone calls are important as well. All right, let's go to the next one. Next page is strategy, the vision for the ministry, all right? I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. We did last meeting. I think the majority of you know this, but I just want to quickly go through this. The vision, our vision for our ministry. These are some of our core values, what we embrace, being multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-generational, and multi-site. Any questions on this? No? You guys all clear on this? So here's what I would challenge us to do, and this is, I think, where sometimes we can get into trouble, and I'm included in this. We have to be sensitive about ethnicity, and here's what I mean by that. How we joke, even if we're just joking around within ourselves, because a lot of times we don't think this, but the students are listening. And so, and here's the one that I've heard even amongst certain leaders, is and I know this is touchy, but I'm going to just say it, same-sex attraction type jokes, those type of things, no homo and this type of stuff, we have to be really careful with that. And I know some of you guys are like, oh, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal, because what we got to do is be careful to not create any artificial barriers to the gospel. There's enough garbage in these kids' lives that they don't need another thing put in front of them from receiving Christ that we accidentally create because we think we're joking around. And so we need to be wise about that. The Bible's really clear. We need to use wisdom. We need to use discretion. We need to not let any unwholesome talk come out of our mouth. We are held to a higher standard. And so I'm not saying you can't joke, you can't have fun. You guys know me, I love to joke around, I love to have fun too, but we just gotta be sensitive, we gotta be wise. We have kids coming from, I mean, you guys are in these groups, you know, they have so many different ethnic backgrounds and so many things going on. You know, even in this room, you can't assume like, you know, everybody, like you look at somebody and you can't assume they're all, you know, Mexican, for example, or whatever, you know. Like, you know, there's a couple Salvadorans and I'm the like the lone Guatemalan in here, you know, like so, you know what I mean? Like we all need to be sensitive to that. We all need to be sensitive to that. Any questions on this? Any comments? Yes.
Can we still tell short jokes?
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's appropriate.
No, it isn't.
Throwing it out there.
here's what I'm gonna say to that. I'm guilty of that. And I'm really guilty.
All in favor, say aye.
As long as it's game, we can be
All
short.
opposed, say nay.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Abby, you're tall for a girl. You're good to go.
All right. We just need to be sensitive to that because sometimes we can cross that line. And I know we crossed that line with Gabe, and I apologize for
Plenty
that.
of times.
You know, sometimes, you know, you guys, we all have to be sensitive to that. Just, you know, like, let's remember that we're our brothers and sisters in Christ. You know, I know you and your brothers and sisters, some families are really like, you know, make fun of each other and just bag on each other. Some families are like that and others aren't, you know, but, you know, in Christ, we are one family and we got to remember that we're supposed to build each other up in our faith. So, I just wanted to, you know, put that out there. Our strategy, all right? So let's move on, unless there's something else. All right. Sunrise Student Ministry exists to reach every non-believing
Well,
student.
okay, we had a
Oh,
question.
yes, sir.
Now that you bring that up about the whole joking around,
Yeah.
I see it a lot
Mhm.
that we do make a lot of Jesus jokes or biblical jokes as if it was something funny or if it's something that you can take lightly.
Wow.
And I see that sometimes we might want to say, oh, you know, there's no harm in when I'm saying it. But the students who are around us, they don't know that. And they believe to think that, oh, it's okay. If he does it, I can do it. So then it's like we don't really distinct ourselves from the world. That's what the world does. They make jokes about Jesus and Christians. And if we do it too, then what's the whole point of even serving him? What's the whole point of trying to, I don't know, shape kids up? The world can do that on its own. So that's just a concern I have.
Okay.
No, I think it's right there too, by the way we want the students to act in class, we're supposed to be examples too. Like if we tell them turn off your cell phones, we shouldn't be on cell phones either. If we tell them not to be talking while somebody's teaching, leaders shouldn't be talking either. They should be paying attention at the same time too, because they're looking at us. And that goes for everybody. So, I mean, it's a good point what he says. If we're gonna joke around about the biblical things, and the students are gonna think, what's okay, if they, whatever they do, then we can do it too.
Right.
But then we tell them, you guys gotta stop, they're gonna look at us all crazy like, well, you do it. Like, you know,
Yeah. Good point, yes.
Yeah, going off of that, I wanted to bring up just during worship and stuff. I feel like all the leaders on Wednesday nights, what's the word? Collectively, thank you. We expect the kids not to talk, but yet I hear people in the back, and including myself sometimes, talk. And, you know, it could be about, but it's about spiritual things, but we're still talking, you know, while the kids are trying to worship. And I feel like there's no respect during worship. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. I definitely feel there's no respect. There's no sense of awe of God's presence, and that's no diss to you, Carlos. No diss to you whatsoever. It's just us as leaders. If you want these kids to have respect, so during worship, especially during prayer, we can't be talking. We can't be moving around. We have to be the leaders and set the example first.
Amen. And what I'm going to add to that too, and I'm guilty of this sometimes as well, is trying to sit with the students as well, trying to be intermingling with them, not always hanging out in the back or hanging out at this table, you know, for the entire service, you know. We need to be mixing it up with the kids. You know, that's why we're here. Let's just be real. You know, this is why we're here. So,
You know what, I don't think
Appreciate
that's,
that.
I don't think that's gonna work unless you assign someone, to be, for lack of a better word, a police person. Because that, we've been speaking of that for 2 years now, and it hasn't changed, so. And honestly, I'm guilty of it, everyone is, but, you know, it's not gonna change. I don't think it is. It's gonna continue to happen on Wednesdays, it's gonna continue to happen on Sundays, and I think you just need to assign, if it's not gonna be you, you need to assign someone that's gonna just say, you guys need to go over there you know, I was thinking about that this past Wednesday, because Luis and I were in the back and we were talking, and we weren't talking, you know, we were talking church stuff, and we were actually talking biblical stuff, but in the middle of his, when he was talking to me, I was like, wow, we shouldn't be doing this, in my head. And neither one of us stopped. Like I said, we weren't talking baseball or football or anything. It was straight Bible stuff, and, you know, but I was thinking about it because you were teaching, and I was like, wow, this is kind of rude. So, you know, we're all guilty of it, but I don't think it's gonna change unless someone stands up and says, okay, I will be in charge of this, and I will be the person to walk these leaders either in or out, because it's not gonna change. It really isn't. I hate to say, you know, say it like that, but I don't see it changing.
Yeah, I think it's a good way, it's a good practical step to take for change.
So like the, special, the sheriff,
We can even take that to the students, because if the student's being a distraction during worship, obviously he doesn't feel like being there.
Yeah.
so who can do that for, 9 o'clock, Sunday morning? We need to, you know, you need to be like, not afraid, like, loving but firm. I know Fatima does that well, so you'll be the sheriff at 9?
But-
We need a male sheriff too.
But there's a two-way street on that. Number one, whoever's in charge of it has to do it with compassion. You can't walk up there with attitude. And number two, whoever's accepting that needs to accept it and understand why this person's doing it. Because the first person that acts smart with my wife, you're gonna get, no, I'm kidding.
So we need a male at 9 o'clock to be the sheriff. Anyone want to be the 9 o'clock sheriff? Fernando?
No, I don't want to be sheriff. You got
Jay?
Billy.
You
Billy
wouldn't
loves
be,
to
you wouldn't
be
be sharing
sheriff.
religious forces, man.
Yeah, I don't want to be sheriff.
We'll do James then. James is tall, that's amazing. 11 a.m. Billy is like dying about it. How about Billy and Frank?
That works.
That way, like, we have on both sides of the room, right? And then, you know, it's, remember, it's like a kind but also firm, like, even with our leaders, you know, hey, we need you, sit with the students, you need to be interacting with them, just a reminder, you know, not, the students, you can be,
I'm gonna throw a crutch at him.
any females willing to do that at 11?
Oh my God, why do you guys say it like that?
It just got real.
It just got real, exactly. I'm laying down.
My had a question, can you share it out, because there's others probably thinking the same thing.
I was just saying, like, to Pastor Kevin, does that limit, like, other leaders, if they see something going on, like, does that limit them from, like, saying something? 'Cause-
Yeah, we don't want to rush them with the job.
No, no, you
Not at all.
No.
Yeah, you can,
No.
but it's gotta be done with love and compassion.
Every one of us can help us stay accountable, for sure.
Right.
We all need to be doing that. And that's ultimately, hopefully, what I see happen, you know, we all remind each other. But if it gets to that point where somebody's not stepping up, these guys will be the sheriff. All right, and then Wednesday nights,
I'll do it.
Yeah, to me, the biggest problem's on Wednesdays, because what happens on Sundays, and I'm not saying no one's guilty of it on Sundays, but a lot of leaders are hanging on the back anyways, because we know that the middle school's gonna leave. So it's kind of hard, and plus lately, I don't know how it was this morning, but we've been pretty high on numbers, and it's been pretty crowded at the tables and the chairs at 9 o'clock. And so I sympathize with the leaders, as long as they're not talking or they're sitting around, that's different. But I see, my opinion, once again, this is just my opinion, I see the bigger problem on Wednesdays.
Wednesdays?
Yeah.
So the job description is basically help everyone find the seat and everything. And do I stay in the back then? Or do I sit down also?
No, sit down also.
Okay.
I think it's better.
I'll help you out. I'm done with the 5 steps. I can help them out on Wednesdays.
Okay. So Bill, you want to help with that as well?
Yeah.
I think sometimes people forget that, like, there's not enough chairs, and I've been noticing on Wednesday nights. So I don't sit until everybody's seated. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm usually in the back for that reason, not to go and hang out. It's just because then you see kids, and I'm gonna, like, instead of me already sitting, they can use that chair, and then I'll try to get some of the guys to put more chairs, because they're kids that coming in, and you know what I mean. I just feel like, and sometimes because we're all facing forward, we don't see the kids coming in, you know. So I don't know. That's, I guess, some excuses too.
We'll add some chairs.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Or even if the chairs are on the side stacked and ready, in case we need them. Because if we put a lot of rows, then the kids are going to go towards the back. But just have them on the sides ready, like
Mhm.
2 sets, and
Okay.
in case we need them.
I'll talk with Mike, he's our turn guy. All right, this is good. Strategy. Let's move on to strategy. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. You guys know why we exist, right?
Yes.
To reach not the non-believing student. That's what we're here for. To be one person who is faithful to God, to bring one person to faith in Jesus, and to build one person in maturity of Christ. We've been doing that in the announcement videos. We need to hammer that home. I'm going to get a banner made. We're going to hang it in here. I mean, this is something that we all need to, just own and believe and be a part of it. Next page, B1. It's all laid out here. To be one who is faithful to God, one must be faithful in the basic things of God, right? So basic things, spiritual growth. Having our faith and our disciplines, following Christ. So Jesus, all spiritual life flows out of our personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Having Him as the center. Bible, daily intake from, and obedience to the Bible. Prayer, talk to God in private, daily, and in groups often. Purity, for God and people in all we think, say, and do. These are just foundational things. Now, do we have this all locked in and perfect? No. But we need to be striving towards this. We need to be looking towards, getting better in these things. I would encourage you, if you haven't already, find a life group, find a Bible study, find a place where you can have some accountability, where you can be growing, where you can be contributing. Secondly, make a plan, a Bible reading plan, or find one. I don't know, if you just type in Bible reading plan to Google, how many millions of those will pop up? I don't know, thousands, but find a plan. If you don't have a plan, then you will never achieve it. Some prayer time. Build that into your schedules. I know some of you guys are ready. This is foundational for some of you, but some of you maybe not are there. I encourage you to do that. Spend some time in God's Word every day. Purity for God, people, and what we think, say, and do. This is where the accountability piece comes in. Just yesterday, I think it was, I got an email from, there's this website called Covenant Eyes, right? It's one that's really good. If you don't have some sort of filter, which I do, and some of you guys do too, like on your phones or on your computers at home, I encourage you to consider getting that, because we live in a world where you can just get what looks like an innocent email, and then boom, it has like all kinds of nonsense on it. Or you might these filters, the software helps protect you and protect your children, protect your family members from all the garbage that's out there on the internet. So I encourage you. It's called Covenant Eyes, right? Is it covenanteyes.org?
They actually have a sale that's going on. You can try it out for free for 2 months. It ends today, because they had it yesterday and today. So jump on that, and you guys can give it a try. If you guys like it, then continue the service, and just pray on it.
How much? And it's a monthly fee, right?
Yeah, it's a monthly fee. But right now it's like
How much is the monthly fee?
depends on what plan you're trying to get. Like for individual, it's like $10. If you add filters, it's gonna be an extra like 2 filters now. But like and you can send like accountability reports to, like, say if you have an accountability partner, he can get like whatever you search, like that whole week or month, depending on how often he wants it.
Yeah.
Then you guys can talk about it, like, hey, I saw you go in this one side, and it's rated M, so
For mature.
we need to talk further.
Yeah.
Something like that. So it's a good way to, of course, to edify each other, of course, like compassion,
That's tight.
not to attack.
Right.
Do they also have that for the smartphone?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I have
'cause
it for my.
I have X3, and it's the same, pretty much the same software. Yeah, it's really helpful.
All right, cool. I'm going to move on, because I want to keep going. There's a lot to cover. Next page, giving. Giving generously and regularly give to God. Now, this is one of those things that every one of us has to look inside ourselves, because I'm not going to go and like, oh, did Fernando give this month or not? This is between you and God. But I encourage you to give not only financially, but you already give your time and your talents. The other one is our tithing. That's the other thing. We need to be modeling that. Family. Demonstrate attitudes and actions which build up our family, your family individually, your collective family if you're living at home with parents or whatever, building up our family. Our church, grow and help build others in witnessing. Seek to bring others to a personal relationship with Jesus. These are just foundational things, like I said. But I think it's important for all of us to be reminded about this. Because we forget. We forget and we get sidetracked. So at the bottom, being an effective Christian is knowing Jesus, loving God, people, obeying God's word, growing the basics, and reproducing them in others. That's really what it all boils down to. Sounds real simple, right? The reality is it's a challenge. And so that's why we all need to be encouraging each other to walk towards God and towards this. The next one, bring one. The price to bring someone to Jesus includes these steps, all right? Prayer to God, relationship of integrity. So that's the P. The R is relationship of integrity. The I, information about Jesus. C, the challenge to commitment. And E, have them embrace the church, embrace fellowship, embrace a place to grow spiritually. So attending church regularly, discipling to mature spiritually, equipping to lead people, coaching to produce leaders, and mentoring to reproduce. So this is the bring one. This is what bring one looks like. There's some examples there. Maybe 2 major outreaches that we have during the year of outreaches. Events, small groups, campus outreach, community outreach, church invites, etc. These are all opportunities to bring people into relationship with Christ. And we encourage every student to take ownership of their faith by discipling others. Any questions on this? Comments? I thought I saw a hand over here, or somebody just stretching. All right.
About the build one, bring one, and be one?
Yeah.
Yes, all the time.
Okay, go.
It's training us or describing to us what we should be doing for the kids. We encourage every student, on the back it says we encourage every student. But my question or my comment is, I think one of the areas where is a concern is that who's holding these people accountable? And Pastor Kevin, I'll tell you, I remember when you first came here and you interviewed, and I've shared this story with a couple people, and one of the questions I asked you was, are you going to minister to the kids or are you going to minister to the leaders? Because it's been my experience that a youth leader that comes in and ministers to the kids isn't going to have a successful ministry. And you said you were going to minister to the leaders. Now, it was kind of unfair now because if I'm not mistaken, back then there wasn't as many leaders as there is now. And I think one of the areas that we're, and I say we're because I'm what you call an older guy that's been here a long time. I think we're failing in holding this group accountable to this be one, bring one, and build one. We're so into make sure we do this for the students, but we're not holding anyone. And I think that's some of the biggest problems that we're having, including the recent problems that have surfaced. It's because no one's holding these people accountable. And I think as you being the ministry leader, you have to come up with a plan to do that. Because I don't think you could do it by yourself. I really don't. And I'll even step up and say I would be willing to take on part of that. Because it's not going to be successful unless we hold all these kids accountable. It really isn't.
Yeah, because we have a lot more young adults
A
now
lot
than
more.
when we started.
Yeah.
Because when we started, there was older, people our age, and now there's a lot of young adults.
Right.
That, I agree with them a lot. But right now, as far as our age, there's only 4 of us. That's it.
I just wanted to add, I totally agree with what Fernando was saying, and I know that a couple of my brothers and sisters here, I don't know how everyone is, but I know that some of us are taking discovery classes, we're getting equipped, because it is important for not only us to, pour into these students, but for someone to pour into us, so we are keeping ourselves accountable, and yes, I agree with that 100%, but yeah, we do need to keep each other accountable.
I think that you hit a great point there, keeping each other accountable, but also putting a plan together for this. One of the things is, once we go through this too, I think we will be responsible, we will be held accountable. That's why I wanted to make this a mandatory meeting so that we can all know that, hey, you know what, I heard this, I understood it, I'm going to be held accountable to it, I'm going to put together, obviously we need a plan for this, like you said. I appreciate you being willing to step up and help out with this. And I will be talking with a few of our more seasoned veteran leaders out there. Seasoned, you know what I'm talking about. To help with the accountability process. Because I think you're right, we need to spread this around. There needs to be people who are going to help keep all of us accountable. And then ultimately my job is to keep these leaders accountable. You're right. Matt, question, comment?
No, that's
Or was it Ashley? Okay, sorry. I saw it kind of out of my peripheral, so.
I didn't know what happened.
Yeah.
The
only thing is it, you're talking about accountability with just older into younger, or is it just all of us with each other? Because on Friday night, me and Samaya and a couple of other girls, we had because we know we all have busy schedules, so our plan is to hold each other accountable in like a group email. So I don't know if that would work, or you want it to be like in person, one-on-one, or anything. But that's
I think both. I think, I mean, we need peer accountability, but we also need accountability from leadership. I think it's both. I think it's good to have both because, you know, like some of the issues and things that you need accountability, you know, it'll be hot on your mind and it'll be something that you can keep someone in your life stage more accountable. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so I think it's good to have both. So, but putting together a plan, I'm writing that down for that, and contacting some of you guys, like I said. Any other things? Yeah, Billy.
I guess, not to beat a dead horse, but I have a good accountability partner, and I guess I'll consider Matt my accountability. I tell him everything, tells me everything as well, try to keep each other on track.
Too much.
Yeah, shut up, dude. But I feel like what we're really lacking is, and I'm not, this could just be me, but mentoring. That's what, honestly, because some of us don't want it, some of us think, like looking up to Frank and John and Fernando, we might think we know better, but in reality we don't. Dude, they've been in the ministry longer. We should really go under their wing. I'll admit it right now, like a few weeks ago, I broke down in front of Fernando and a couple other leaders. You know, David was there, because honestly I didn't have anything. Like I was running almost on empty, because we're pouring out the entire time, but nobody's really pouring into us. So these classes are good. Oh, bad, sorry. These classes are good and all to take, but we still need that one-on-one ourselves. And that's what we're really lacking, I want to say. Like somebody that, us being willing to listen to them, because we might say, okay, cool, we want mentors, we won't listen. We have to be willing to listen. We have to be willing to obey too. And as I guess our generation, we're stubborn, dude. We grew up with everything being handed to us, not really have to fight for anything. So now that we have these seasoned veterans, like Pastor Kevin said, they did it differently when they were growing up. And that's also good to be poured into us, because they did it the old-fashioned way, which it was hard work for us. Is we want everything easy. We don't really want to go through the entire hard process. And for Christ, he says it, dude. I mean, we just read it today in equipping. They asked him, what do I have to do to follow you? I want to follow you. Dude, he's homeless. You got to live the hard way. Like, there's no such thing as easy ministry. It's going to be hard ministry from day one until the day that we die. It's a marathon. It's not a race.
So mentoring.
Yeah.
Got it.
I don't know if this is okay for me to say, but I know my parents, like, they're open for, like, me and my sisters, like, we're open to, like, learning from them, but they're also open to learning from us, so, you get what I'm saying? Like, the seasoned, like, veterans here, like, we could learn from you guys, but then maybe you guys could learn from us too. You know what I'm saying?
I understand. I think that, you know, yeah, anytime that I like mentor people, I learn as well. I think that there's a give and a take, for sure. But I think one of the things that we got to remember is that those who live a little bit longer have that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you cannot teach. You can give advice, you can share, you can say, hey, you know, these are things that, but ultimately too, I've learned this over the years. Like I can talk to somebody until I'm blue in the face, and 95% of the time, like we were talking about this, you tell somebody to go right, they're going to go left. You know, and so that's where mentoring, trust, but ultimately everyone's going to choose and everyone's going to, you know, make those decisions. But I think mentoring is really important. Yeah.
One thing I would say in addition to accountability is the spiritual growth process. I know we talked about this last time meeting. I don't know where everybody is, but like ideally, everyone in this room should have gone through Discovery 1, 2, 3 and Equipping 1, 2, 3. And not to put anyone else on blast, but like knowing just from the numbers we have in those classes, I think a lot of people in church, probably in this room, haven't. And that's okay, because, you know, everyone's got, you know, stuff they got to do. I know a lot of you guys are here Sunday 9, 11, and you're busy. But me and Kevin were talking about, you know, like a plan to help people be able to check out like at 9 or 11 so they can get the process. Because that more than most things I've seen in this church is really what keeps people grounded and turns them around a lot. Once you get to this, the next step is to go through those classes, and you learn so much, and you get so much foundational stuff that you can build up. And if people haven't done that, there's just a lot more things that they have to deal with. And that, I think, going through those 6 classes, and it takes like a year and a half, I think going through those 6 classes, it replaces like years of counseling. Because if you get that stuff solid, then there's so many things you don't have to go, I gotta talk to this guy about it, I gotta figure it out, I managed such a mess. No, because you've already gone through it, you know all this stuff, all the basic stuff. So if everyone can get through that, like one way or another, find a way to, you know, take a break, maybe like one service for a while, or switch off to somebody. If we can come up with a plan for that, I know we were talking about it, but that would be like a big help, I think.
That's like, for example, like somebody came to me and said, hey, can I do this? I'm like, yeah, let's just make sure we have your group covered, you know, and that's fine, let's do it, you know, like, I think those are good things. One of the things I want to talk about with our spiritual growth, I guess, what is he, our director, Anthony?
Yeah.
He's trying to figure out a plan for all of you, I want to, and our students, our high schoolers, to start, you know, to start at the beginning base, you know, I can do the membership baptism class, and then from there we can go Discovery 1, 2, 3, you know, equipping 1, 2, 3. We can take them through that process over the next year and a half or whatever, because I think it's that important. Like you said, we're gonna encounter a lot of these challenges in our lives. Let's go walk into these situations equipped. You know, we're gonna face them regardless, but let's have something that, you know, a foundation to cling to. You know, God and what He shows us through His Word. So we're gonna put together a plan for that as well, so that you can be growing, you can be equipped. Any questions on this? Before we move on, yeah.
I think that also probably includes a 5-step follow-up.
Oh yeah, 5-step. I mean, there's a lot to the spiritual growth process. And all of those are good things, and a lot of them can be done interchangeably either as well. You know, you don't have to go through one or the other. I mean, the first one, of course, is receiving Christ, but from there, a lot of it just a lot of it happens. You know, just depending on timing and whatnot. But yeah, 5-step is super important. I'd say right after you come to know Christ, that should be the next thing that you go through or that you take someone through. Which book is the very next thing? Building 1 right here in the next section. This is like what Fernando was saying, this is like intended for us to remember that we need to do this with the students, but this also needs to happen with us. Attending church regularly, discipling students to mature spiritually, equipping to lead people, coaching to reproduce leaders, and mentoring to reproduce. There's a mentoring aspect. Some of us in here need to start looking at our role as being mentors. Some of us in here need to start seeing our role as being coaches. You know, we all have different roles to play. And not one is more important than the other, but we all have different roles to play. Down here at the bottom in this little half circle says we encourage every student to take ownership of their faith by discipling others. And that's a big issue right there, a big challenge. Ownership. You've probably heard this before. I know Jay said it before. The worst thing to do is to have a Christian be a Christian at the same level for 20 years in a row. You know, and that's what we don't want. We want to equip and encourage and challenge students and ourselves to be growing constantly. Now, does that mean that you're always going to be growing? No. I mean, there'll be seasons in life. You guys, I think we've all experienced it, where we've hit times of being stagnant. You know, but what does that mean? We need to push forward. We need to keep moving. We need to, dig deeper, follow Christ. Get connected with them. So I think that these are those things that all of us need to be encouraged and challenged to do, and do it with the students. If we're discipling a student, like so you guys all know this, then that keeps us accountable. It focuses us. It helps us grow as well. Anything on this? Anything further to add? Comments, questions? All right. Next, section 1. If we don't get through it all today, that's fine. We'll cover it next time. Everything weekends and the student ministry experience. So we're going to be talking about more about the weekend service, more of the nuts and the bolts stuff here. But one of the things that you need to think about is putting yourself in their shoes. I know for some of us it's been a while since we've been in high school or middle school, but put yourself in their shoes. One of the key things is being an effective youth leader is the willingness to remember your middle school and your high school experiences and connecting with students at their level. So meeting the student where they're at. I know it seems a bit odd that we ask you to journey back to your youth, but it's important for us to quote, revisit our past because it brings us back to our roots of who we are, the people we hung out with, who we went to for advice. By stepping back in time, you can remember your journey forward that you made into, and it's missing the page, but it's okay. We're working through this. So I want you guys just for 5 minutes or less, I want you guys to talk with a couple people around you. If you have some, you can write on the margins because it's kind of hard to write on the black right there. But I want you guys to answer these questions, and then we're just going to come out and share just a couple of them. But I want you guys to go through this exercise. Thank you.
How about high school?
That was my my middle school crush, 8th grade.
I went.
Act normal.
She interviewed in 8th grade.
High school's so recent. I want to be middle school. That's how I have to get back. And that's where I'm helping kids out.
I didn't get to meet until about
NWA, you know, kind of 80s hip hop.
My favorite album. Those are required.
Those are your favorite albums. Andrew Sisters?
They're from the 50s.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure I've heard that name before.
Who had a favorite band? What was your favorite band?
Now?
Back then.
They weren't around back
Because you're going back.
I would wear like a jersey, but not all on the way down. The rappers wear like a jersey with like one sleeve and like sort of hanging like a satchel. I would wear it like that.
Digital Underground. Let's see. No, Tupac was like way after. No, maybe he was. I don't remember him. He was Run DMC, Beastie Boys. I like Hammer. I'll admit it. No, I didn't have any pants. Vanilla Ice. You know, like
Vanilla Ice.
So I had a counterfeit NWA. Next page, I want us to look at two things before we get out of here. This is the training part. This is some of the stuff that I think some of us may or may not know. You may have heard it, maybe you haven't. It's about student development, life development. These are important tools to help you understand the students that you're serving. Profile of your typical middle school and some high school students. You know, some of these will overlap. Okay, these are generalities, but there's a lot of commonalities here. This is, you know, sociology and all that fun stuff. Lives and dies by their cell phone, right? So the average middle schooler sends 100+ texts a day. That's per day. Now, those of you who are, know students in that age, you would probably agree with me, or more. In fact, that was one of the things that kind of mystified me at first about, middle school, high school, and young adults is 95% of them prefer to text than to call. That's just the way they do things, And so, for all of us who are a little bit older, remember we are called to be missionaries. We're supposed to reach out to them. So this is one way to communicate with them. I know at first I resisted it. I had a dumb phone. I hated it, but over time I've kind of learned that this is one way to communicate with them, to text them. Now, obviously, if it's like some deep spiritual, theological conversation, it's not going to work through, half the time you're messing up on the text or, an emoticon pops up or whatever. You can't do that. So you need to actually talk to them. But, for a lot of the conversations, that's a way to get the ball rolling with them. Secondly, a lot of these middle school and high schoolers are thinking already about it. College. We live in a world where the pressure that many of us didn't feel when we were going through high school was to go through these things. Running as fast. They're running at a fast pace. Some of them are stressed out already. They have packed schedules. They're in sports or dance or grades or in clubs. A lot of our students are going through this. They're dealing with it. I mean, my kids are in the midst of it right now as well. So as you minister to these kids, remember this is what's going on in their lives. How can you bring the gospel? How can you bring Christ into those situations? How can you help them deal with some of these stresses? How can you help them overcome the challenges that they're feeling in their life? The next one, they're in an awkward transitional stage. Can I get an amen to that? You know what I'm talking about? My sons, one of them is like 5'7", but he has like size 10.5 feet. It's just awkward. They haven't grown into their bodies yet. They might be big on the outside, but a lot of them are still little on the inside. And so, and some of them still haven't grown up right here. So, they're going through puberty. They have mental challenges, identity issues, sexual identity issues. Those things are going to continue to to manifest themselves in our ministry, and they're going to start coming out even more because of, I mean, you guys, unless you've been sleeping under a rock somewhere, you know that our culture is more and more becoming more accepting of homosexuality and same-sex marriage, and that whole issue, and it's rearing its head more and more even within the church. Just a month ago, less than a month ago, there was a church that was part of the Southern Baptist Convention that was expelled. They're out in La Mirada, like near Biola University, because they were embracing what is called the third way. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that, where either either you're all in, like we are, like we believe totally the Bible, or liberal, saying we don't necessarily agree with the Bible. It's like whatever God kind of leads you, or what they were espousing which is a third way, they called it, where it was like, well, maybe yes, maybe no, kind of yeah. And most of us know that it's really all or nothing. You know what I mean? There's no third way, but they were kind of embracing that. And here's what happened. The reality was the pastor of that church, his son was struggling with that, and his son came out. And so instead of let's go to the Bible and what does God's word say, no, he embraced it. So what happened is they asked that church to disfellowship themselves from the Southern Baptist Convention. And so this is happening within our church. Not our church necessarily right now, but it probably will soon. And it's happening within the church in general, especially here in Southern California, as many of you know. So I'm just saying, these are issues that we are going to start dealing with if we haven't already. And so that's why earlier, a long time ago, we talked about be careful how we joke, be careful what we say, because we need to be able to be sensitive to the ministry that God puts before us. There's going to be kids, there are kids, I know that, for a fact now, that are struggling with that even within our own ministry. How do we serve them? How do we help them? How do we, reach out in Christ's love and show them what God's word says? Any questions, comments on this stuff so far? Good? Okay. This is the next one, which middle schoolers, high schoolers, young adults, and adults struggle with this as well, but I think this is very much them at this age. The world is very much about them and only them. Everything revolves around what? Me. My need. And that's what our culture has created that. We've created this very me-centered culture. And so peer relationships take center stage in both positive and negative ways. So their world revolves around their friends. You guys know this, right? Their friends aren't there. What do? They don't want to go, right? It's one of the things that I'll be real with you. A lot of times young adults ask this, who's going to be there? Who's going to be there, right? Why? Because if it's not one of their friends, what do they decide not to do it, right? A lot of them don't have the maturity yet to stand up on their own and say, I'm going to go anyway, or I'm going to do this anyway. They need to have somebody there. Next thing, they're bombarded with twisted messages of sexuality through television, music, and media. So many of them are thinking constantly about the opposite sex, and I would even say same sex. Constantly in competition and comparing themselves with others at that age. And sometimes this is encouraged by adults, sometimes it's encouraged even through our sports programs, for example, or through academics. We're pushing these kids, and so this is what a lot of your typical middle school students are going through and dealing with. Next page, they're living in a materialistic society more than ever. I remember when I was a kid, my parents would take me shopping maybe once a year, and I got like one or two maybe pairs of jeans, and that was about it. I had two pairs of shoes, my church shoes and my school shoes, and those would go until they were talking, what I'm talking about? They had big holes in them, and now like a lot of our kids have 20 pairs of sneakers, they've got so much, and so this is the society that they're dealing with. This is the message that's being communicated, materialism. Next one, their main source of interaction is social networking. Facebook, Instagram, I don't think a lot of them Twitter, but some of them do, Snapchat, what else is out there? I don't even know, I lost track. But this is what is it? Kick? Kick, that's the other one, right? Kick? This is how to communicate. This is something that for some of us, we're not into it, but realize this is where they're at. You guys know this, messages, sexting, sending inappropriate texts and so forth, that is one of the biggest issues in our culture today. So much chisme, so much, stuff is spread through that in a heartbeat. Like, who was it? I think it was Mark Twain that said, a lie is spread halfway around the world while the truth is bending over barely tying its shoes. Like in that amount of time, meaning like it just lies and things spread so quickly. And now literally, stuff gets spread all over the internet so quickly. Just, what was it, like maybe 6 months ago, I remember seeing this on the news. At Etowah High School, there was a huge scandal with sexting. You guys see that? Hear about that? That a few of the girls, like dumb girls, took pictures of themselves inappropriately, sent them to their boyfriends, and then the boyfriends started and they broke up with them. What of these boyfriends started doing? Started sending them through Twitter, I think it was, and it just spread like crazy. And it was a huge issue. I mean, I'm sure that's happened at Carter. I'm sure it's going to happen at Miller. It's happening all over the place. And so we need to be aware of that. Next, they attend school that advocates tolerance but tends to shut down religious expression. It's tolerance as long as it's not what? Christian or Christ-based. And so a lot of students are interested in the spiritual realm, but sometimes not necessarily Christianity. But there's this huge emphasis on spirituality. I mean, look at, for example, I'm going to finish with this. Right now, what's one of the biggest things that's coming up? One of the biggest holidays?
Halloween.
Halloween. And how much of that is intermingled already with spirituality and demonology? And, and a lot of people say, oh, it's all just what? It's all fun and games, right? But you know what? It's not. There's a spiritual element. There's darkness that's interwoven into this. And that's exactly how the enemy is trying to get these kids. I've shared this before. You guys have probably experienced it. When I was a kid, we used to have the Scholastic Book Fair. You guys remember those? Get those little, and you get your Clifford books or whatever, and you remember those? They're like your kid. The parents here probably bought some for their kids. You remember those? We went to the Scholastic Book Fair warehouse. It's in, I think, El Monte or something out there. We went and checked it out, and we checked it out. And I kid you not, we went into the juvenile section for my sons, and I'm not joking, but maybe 90% of those books for those kids from 7th through like 9th grade, 6th to 7th through 9th grade, were all about vampires, about, evil, darkness, like all, it used to be just Goosebumps, haha, no big deal. Now it's like dark stuff. Harry Potter, all those. I don't know if Harry Potter's part of that, but anyway, it was that whole world entices them. And so that's what we're dealing with as well. That's what we're dealing with. And so how do we bring the gospel? How do we share Christ with them? I think it's going to happen, and you guys know this, it's going to happen through one-on-one. It's going to happen through them seeing our lives, through us pouring into them and helping them develop as followers of Jesus, because they're getting bombarded with these messages. So where's true faith can be revealed is through their families, if they're followers of Christ, and through us pouring into them as well. Because I was just talking with Gabe, a couple of top, for our people who influence us, were leaders at our age, middle school and high school. We can remember adults. I can remember certain youth leaders that poured into me, took time, and helped develop me, and I looked up to them, and I learned a lot from them. So that's the role that we get to have, is to pour into these students and help them draw closer to Christ. I'm going to finish right now. Any questions, comments before we continue? And then hopefully, by next month, we will have the finished product. And it's going to look way better. It's going to have more training and equipping stuff. And any questions, comments before we finish and get out of here?
I just want to, we talked about earlier,